Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this webinar here this morning. It's a webinar giving you, I guess, the latest state of play on acres and with a particular focus on the scorecard submission that will be starting over the next period of time. I suppose the first thing I want to say regarding your work is, again, it's thanks for all your input in terms of the preparation of the farm sustainability plans and the applications last year. I think this is the first maybe broad engagement that we've had in since then, so it's important to recognise the significant work that has been done by farm advisors on the ground. And I know, again, over the last number of weeks and months, you've been flat out as well on the BIS application. So again, like, the work in this area really is acknowledged, and I guess we're facing into another big block of work again in regard to the submission of scorecards. So this allows us to give an opportunity to give an overview of the workflow that's to happen in terms of this area. So we have a busy morning here this morning in terms of number of presentations in relation to acres at the minute. So I suppose maybe without holding things up, maybe at this point, it's a full agenda. We'll try and have a coffee break sort of after the first 4 presentations, which I guess will be coming close to 11 o'clock maybe at that point in time. So first up this morning then is Aidan Boyce, and he's going to give current state of play in relation to acres and the stats that are on that. I'll pass over to you, Aidan. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, John. My name is Aidan Boyce. I'm working in the acres admin team, and this presentation is just giving you an overview as to what the current status is with the acres applications, and and just to give you an idea of what's coming down the tracks as regards timelines and various things like that. And so we just, all right, so just the story so far, as you know, in December 2022, the application window closed. There was pre-approval validations and all that done on the just over 46,000 applications we got. And in March 2023, the approval letters and species guide booklet was sent out to the successful applicants. So just over 46,000 successful applicants. So at the moment, the CP teams are carrying out delineation of the privately owned CP land, and they're submitting their farm cooperation plans, or cooperation farm plans, sorry. That'll be completed probably in the next couple of weeks, and then they'll be in a position to, the advisors themselves will be in a position to go out and start scoring parcels then for the results-based actions on the general side and the CP forage parcels on the common on the cooperation side. And just at the end of May, the successful applicants would have got their approval summaries issued in the last couple of weeks. That's basically just the PDF document with maps and the list of actions that they've been approved. And obviously that's a very important booklet to have to give you a record of what you've actually been approved on for acres. Right, just a quick approved applications by the county. As you can see, it's basically the top counties are all down along the western seaboard, more or less the same as it was in Glas. And just there's quite a large crossover between Glas and acres. About 70% of people who applied and successfully got into acres had previously been in Glas, so there's obviously a good uptake or a good carry through from one environmental scheme to the other. And then just the applications by co-op zones, you can see they're fairly evenly spread along the west coast. It just for all information, obviously there are circulars issued over the course of the last year, or the course of that since January. As you can see, the circulars are there that have been issued so far this year, and if you want to have a closer look at those circulars, you can go to the link there at the bottom. It's on the gov.ie agriculture page, and you can see there's the subsection of acres circulars. So obviously go in there and have a look at those if you need to. Okay, so for over the course of the last since people have been approved into acres, we've been getting queries on the acres admin side, and these are just some of the more frequently asked queries that we've had. To do with withdrawal mainly at the moment. So how do I withdraw my client from acres? You must send in a request to the acresagriculture.gov.ie for the general site and acrescp@agriculture.gov.ie for the cooperation site. And you can either the applicant themselves or the advisor acting on behalf of the applicant can send in the request to withdraw from the scheme, and we'll facilitate that request in, and you'll get a notification out to say that your request has been, that you are now withdrawn from the scheme. But just to bear in mind as well that this isn't maybe not relevant this year so far, but once we get into the scheme, if you do withdraw from the scheme, you may be asked to pay back the money that you've been paid up to the point of withdrawal. And again, how do I withdraw an action from acres? It's the same process. You send in a request in writing to the acres teams to ask to withdraw the specific action. But obviously you have to give us the information as to what action it is and what LIPUS parcel it is, and we can go in then and we can facilitate that. And again, you'll get your acknowledgement that your action has been withdrawn. And obviously there are implications to withdrawing an action from acres. The circular number 3 of 2023 goes into detail about what's involved in withdrawing an action and what the possible ramifications of withdrawing an action are. But in short, depending on whether the action has implications for the tierage of the application, you may incur a penalty for withdrawing that action. But in any event, you may be asked to pay back the money paid on that action up to the point of withdrawal. So just to bear that in mind as well. And the other more frequently asked questions we were getting was to do with, because the BIS screens were obviously opened in late February, and obviously acres is a component of that. So we were getting a lot of questions about BIS, acres on BIS. Now obviously the BIS scheme has closed at this point, so some of these mightn't be necessarily relevant for this year, although the online amendment facility is still there, so there may be some relevance to these. And obviously, of course, going forward to next year, coming years, these questions will probably crop up again, because the same issues tend to crop up year after year. So the main question we were getting was, there's no acres information on my BIS screen, but my client is approved in acres. Usually that means that the client that you're submitting your BIS for is a cooperation client with no general actions. So the way the BIS and acres interacted this year was that it was the general. If you had a general action on acres, that triggered the BIS screens, and your acres tab appeared on your BIS screen with your general actions. But for co-op, obviously they didn't have any general actions, so that didn't work. But hopefully for BIS 2024, there will be an acres tab for these cohort of applicants, and it's hoped that they will show the scoring details of the parcels that were scored this year. But obviously that's down the tracks yet. Okay, another question was, can I make changes to my acres parcels on my BIS application? And just to say, we would strongly advise you not to make any changes if you could possibly not, for the simple reason that if you make changes on your BIS application, on your acres details on your BIS application or your acres parcels, that may create a mismatch between what's on acres and what's on BIS, which will throw up a flag later on in the year when we're processing these files for payment. And obviously then we'll have to go in and investigate that, so that may hold up your client's acres payment. Okay, the next one was, I applied for an acre split parcel action, but it hasn't been separated out on the BIS mapping. Yeah, we got a few of these where people may have, say for example, put in a riparian buffer zone at the end of a parcel. When they went to look at their BIS, the parcel was still all one, and the riparian buffer zone hadn't been split out. Now there are a couple of ways you could deal with that. You could just contact us. We used to get onto the LIPUS team and get them to redraw the parcel based on what's on the acres application, or you can go and subdivide the parcel yourself to reflect where the division should be on the acres application, and the online amendments then that would go back out for digitizing then on the online amendments, so it would be digitized out. And the last question is then, can I add parcels to my acres contract? No, you can't add anything to your acres contract at this stage. What you have been approved on, what the client has been approved on in the approval summary is what they're approved on. They can't bring in any more land. So say if you have a parcel with and there's another parcel beside it, and you want to merge that parcel, you won't bring in the extra area for your acres if you do merge those parcels. Just to say as well that if there's any issues with acres actions or acres mismatches between acres and BIS, and you're not sure, or you're coming up against a deadline, or you're not sure what to do, like the easiest thing to do was, if you want to go ahead and submit your BIS application, you should go ahead and submit your BIS application and just leave a note on the BIS application explaining what the story is with the acres issue, and we'll get those notes from BIS after the application window is closed, and we'll be able to look at those issues then, and hopefully get them sorted out before we go to pay the client. Okay, so the main thrust of this webinar is obviously all about scorecards. So there's scorecard trading currently taking place. The CP teams are doing scorecard trading. So obviously that's going on at the moment. It started last week. There's training sessions this week, next week, and I think the last training session is the 13th of June. Eventbrite is the system that we're using to manage that. So you can see in acres, the acre circular 0723, there's a link to Eventbrite where you can go in and you can book your ticket for whatever session you want to go on. Now you can attend any available session for any CP zone. It doesn't necessarily have to be the CP zone that your client is in. It can be any CP zone, and it can be anywhere where there's available spaces. Most sessions are now fully booked. So if you haven't booked a session already, I advise you to get in fairly quickly and do it, because we're down to, I think we were down to nearly the last 50 places there up to yesterday, and it could be less than the today. Okay, just a quick run through scorecard information. This is the type of scorecards that we're getting for cooperation parcels. So you can see that all the different types of scorecards are represented there, but by far and away the biggest scorecard, or the most popular scorecard, is the grassland scorecard. You can see that's way above everything else. Peatland scorecard would be the next, and the rough grazing, and then obviously down at the end, then you'd have the sort of more uncommon scorecards. For example, the breeding Meadow scorecard, and obviously the burn winterage scorecard, which is, as the name suggests, is really only applicable within the burn CP zone. And you can see there that there's quick statistics about the scorecards. As you can see, there's quite a lot of scorecards per herd number. There's 8 scorecards per herd number. You can see there's the total number of herds. There's 16,000 total number of scorecards, 100. So there's a lot of work involved in that. And I suppose once the functionality is in place, you'll be able to go scoring them. And so just for the scorecard information, this is the low input grassland and the low input peat grassland. This is for the general, the general results based action. As you can see there, again, there's quite a lot of scorecards to be scored. So just, there's a lot of work to be done over the summer. Okay, so just a word on the local action plans for the cooperation zone. Cooperation teams are developing a local action plan for each of their zones, and these are currently being finalised. And there's in conjunction with the local authorities in the cooperation zones as well. Now these local action plans, they'll obviously influence what NPI or landscape actions are appropriate for the land in the zone. And there'll be an appropriate assessment process done by an ecologist for the local action plans. And we'll hopefully have those local action plans available to examine as soon as possible. Okay, I just mentioned it there in the last slide, the non-productive investments in the landscape actions. These are for cooperative applicants only. There's €17,500 available over the duration of the contract. That's the equivalent of 3,500 a year, but it's not, you don't have to, you're not limited to spend 3,500 per annum. You can draw down the money at any stage once you have your NPI or landscape action formed and you've the claim in. So there's a draft list of 40 NPIs, and you can see the 3 categories there. The NPI burn Aaron is just is exclusively just for the burn co-op zone. There's 3 actions on that. You know, the landscape actions, there are roughly 40 landscape actions that the CP teams can choose. We haven't the finalized list of those yet, so once we get those, we'll definitely make them available. Now, the application window, we're targeting that the application window will be opening in September, and the actions will be drawn on the GLAM system, similar to the farm sustainability plans. If you go into GLAM and you draw your action, and the landscape actions and the NPIs will be screened by the CP teams, because they obviously have the expertise to know where, you know, what's appropriate for the land that you're putting it on, and the payment claims then will be submitted from 2024. And these are just a list of the landscape actions. As I said, they're in three categories. So you have habitat and wildlife support, and as you can see here, a lot of these landscape actions are very similar to some of the general actions on the general side. And as I said, you go in to GLAM and you draw your action the same as you would have done for the CP, for the FSPs, if you're on the general side. So for example, if you want if you decide to planting new hedgerows, you go into your GLAM screen and you just draw the line where you're planting your hedgerows, and it's the same for any of those other actions. And then you just go to the next one, which is the farm infrastructure one, which is more of a capital investment ones, where you're putting in water trucks, or you're putting in, you know, storage feed bins or sheep wire, stuff like that, you know. But it's the same principle. You go in and you indicate where exactly you're going to put these. And then, as I said, the burn iron ones, these are three extra NPIs exclusively for those people in the burn and arid CP zone. Okay, so moving on to the late meadow bonus payment. This is something that's available for anyone who's submitted, or anyone who's indicated that they're going to do low input grassland or low input peat grassland, the results-based general actions. The parcels must be mown between 1st of July and August 31st, and it's the whole parcel. So if you bring in, you have to mow the whole parcel if you're claiming the low input or the late meadow bonus payment. And it's €50 a hectare, and it's up to a maximum of 10 hectares, the same as the actual action is a maximum of 10 hectares. And as you can see there, the meadows must be closed up with no grazing or machinery operations to take place for at least 6 weeks prior to cutting. And just a bit in red, this is the actual mechanics of it. So anybody who's put in low input grassland or low input peat grassland on their acres application will get, on the 1st of July, we'll get a request through the AgriSnap app. They'll be able to go out into the parcel that they've mowed, and they'll be able to take a photograph of the geotag photograph of that parcel, send it into the department through the AgriSnap app. Now, obviously, you'll have to make sure that you're standing well inside the boundaries of the parcel to make sure that the application can pick up the location of that parcel. And then you obviously must submit the parcel to DAFM on the date of mowing or 5 days after mowing. And obviously, all these photographs then will be examined within the department as part of the prepayment validation process. And then once they're verified as correct, then the payment will issue as part of your acres core payment hopefully in the first couple of weeks in November. Just a quick word on payments. General payments, their maximum payment is 7,311. Your contract, but if you're obviously over that, then there'll be a capping adjustment deducted from your payment to reduce it to the maximum amount. So basically, if your gross payment is 9,000, you'll have your gross payment of 9,000, your capping adjustment of one and a half, or just over 1,500, and then your net payment will be 7,311 per annum. So for the cooperation, your max payment for your core payment, or your max payment for your common results-based actions is 7,000. You have the additional 17,500 available for non-productive investments and landscape actions. And as I said, these will be drawn on the GLAM system, and they'll be claimed for payment for 2024. So your max payment you can get between your core payment and the additional money for the NPIs and landscape actions is 52,500. And as is normal practice with current schemes and previous schemes, The core payment will be made in 2 installments. You'll get your advance payment, hopefully at the start of November, and with your balance payment then issuing in spring 2024 for tranche 1 applicants. Okay, just a quick timelines for tranche 1. As I said, summer 2023, the scoring of the CP forage parcels and the scoring of the results-based general actions will start to take place in the coming weeks. And just to say that there'll be more detail, obviously, on this process for some of the presentations going forward. Just to say, the scoring is mandatory only for owned parcels. Leased and rented parcels can be scored, but it's not a mandatory thing. So August 31st, 2023 is a big day. You have your deadline for your submission of your scorecards for the results-based actions and the CP forage parcels, and it's the last day for cutting a parcel for claiming late Meadow bonus. For November 2023, then hopefully the tranche 1 advance payments begin to issue, with the balance payments issuing for tranche 1 applicants in April 2024. And for tranche 2, then September 2023, you'll have your tranche 2 stream checker and your access agreement window opens. So obviously the stream checker will work the same way as it did last year. You or your clients can send in their herd number as part of an SMS, and they'll get a response saying whether or not they're in the general or the co-op stream. And you'll also be able to do that on the online portal. And when you go in to submit an access agreement on behalf of your client, it'll obviously tell you which stream you're going to be in. And then similar to last year, October, November 2023, the tranche 2, you'll be able to start doing your farm sustainability plans on the GLAM system, and then and follow them up with the acres application. And just to be reminded that the acres application process is a 3-step process. You have your access agreement, your farm sustainability plan, and your acres application, and all 3 have to be done. So like the bulk of the work is obviously in the farm sustainability plan, but once you submit your farm sustainability plan, you have to follow it up and go into the acres application on your ag food and do the application form there and submit that. And only then is your acres application deemed to be actually submitted. So just to be aware of that. So then in Q1 2024, the approval summaries and the approval letters and summaries for the successful tranche 2 applicants will issue, and with payment hopefully issuing then sometime in November 2024. So if you have any queries or any help, just email. These are the email addresses for the acres general. Email acres@agriculture.gov.ie. For any clients that are in the co-op stream, you email acrescp@agriculture.gov.ie. And that's all from me, so thank you for listening.
Okay, thanks very much, Aidan. A very comprehensive presentation. Like, I guess the key messages to be picking up from that is, again, it's the volume of work that's going to be coming through in respect to the results-based payments. You've seen from Aidan's figures there, between the CP area results-based payments and the low input grassland with general applicants, there's probably around 600,000 hectares of land to be scored, and just totting up the number of scorecards, just shy of 200,000 scorecards to be submitted. So again, it's a huge amount of work. And again, we've been working on the development of an app that'll be available there. I think coming the 9th of June is what our target date is, to allow for farm advisors to be trained up sufficiently. And again, as Aidan pointed out, there's been a huge interest in the in-field training sessions as well. So like, that's down to the last 50 or so places. So again, I'd encourage anyone that hasn't booked a place yet to try and get their place booked on Eventbrite in respect of attending that field training. And again, the CP teams will address, I guess, the balance of scorecards that are more specialised in nature, such as the mock air, the wader, the chuff, scorecards like that.